Hi, everybody. I am here talking to Jeff DesLauriers, sound mixer from Minneapolis, St. Paul area, but Minneapolis.
Yes, Minneapolis, Minnesota, Minneapolis, St. Paul, kind of a big metro area.
Yeah, but my experience is people are very particular about being very specific.
Yes, yes, indeed. Yes. Other side of the river kind of a thing.
That's right.
Yeah.
Um, but we're here to talk about the Lectrosonics DSR4,
Yes, we are.
uh, which I'm very excited about.
Yeah,
And
yeah.
I am excited because I was a lifelong Lectrosonics user, as you are. And tell me about your experience using the DSR4.
I started with electrosonic stuff back with actually the SRBs, moved into the SRCs and operated with the SRCs for quite some time. So I was hoping when Lectrosonics announced the quad channel slot receiver that the functionality would kind of remain the same, so I could just kind of put that into my ecosystem, into my bag, into my cart setup, and just kind of hit the ground running. And I have to say up front that that's been my experience thus far. Um, they've been very easy to migrate over to without having like a steep learning curve or anything like that. If you've used Electrosonics in the past, it's just kind of like, you know, drop it in, slot it into your bag or into your SL2 or just into your bag, and it's like hit the ground running. The menu systems are function very similarly, and I just kind of want to mention I'm looking down here. I've got my bag in front of me, so if we need to take a look at anything in my bag and how that's set up, we can do that. But just looking down at it right now, it's great. The menus, the buttons are just kind of configured just like an SRB was, just like the SRC was, so you can just kind of start running with it. It's been great on pretty much all the fronts. You know, I've been beta testing. I got
Mm-hmm.
in on the beta testing program with the DSR4 here. So um, basically from early firmware all the way to where it's at right now for the release of the product, and it's just been great to be involved in, like, you know, what goes into the menu system, what menus I would like, where they would exist, where functions exist in that menu system, to make improvements even on what the SRC was like, what the SRB was like, keep what was good, but um, make it better.
Yeah, that's amazing. Tell me, so you got them for the first time, and you were an early beta tester.
Yeah.
What were your impressions as you were using them?
Yeah, so my first thing, of course, like any other wireless microphone system user, would be, all right, is this going to at least perform as good as the system I was using prior? As a lot of us do, we operate in tough RF environments. You know, some days we're working single person interview stuff. Other days it's at a ballpark or a stadium with everyone and their brother operating in the same the same room. And I have to say the performance that I've experienced with these has been as good or better than the SRC was, and even the SRB. It's more along the lines of the earlier electrosonic stuff that everyone loves, as far as range, signal quality. The drop off at the end of range is also a lot more pleasing, which has also been good. But to be quite honest with you, I haven't really noticed a lot of drop off.
That's awesome. That's
Yeah.
awesome. And what transmitters are you using?
Yeah, so I'm using the SMD WBs. So I am still operating in the analog digital hybrid environment, analog signal, of course. Um, and I don't own any of the digital electro digital transmitters as of yet. That's my plan for my next move. However, for the beta testing, I do have some local sound mixer friends. Shout out to them, that Nickel Eisenheimer being one of them, who lent me some of his DBSMs, his digital units, to beta test with. And at this point, I'm happy to say that my performance on that I noticed on whether it be the digital hybrid or the full digital electro stuff is equally the same. I haven't really noticed much of a difference between the two Other than, of course, the sound quality of the digital, of course, is superior than.
That's great. That's good to
Yeah,
hear. And
yeah.
one huge advantage which has come up recently on social media, the encryption that you can do with
Oh
digital.
yeah, yeah, absolutely, absolutely. That is something that I've actually been asked about once or twice,
Hmm.
and I haven't been able to do that quite yet. That's one of the main reasons I'm moving over to the digital side of things as soon as possible. Um, a lot of times you get in with the A-list talent and stuff like that, and they're asking you, can you encrypt those before we even start rolling? And having the ability to do that is going to be really nice.
That's huge.
Um, yeah, yeah.
And I'm curious, when you use the digital transmitters, how is the battery life? Like, did they get
Hmm.
hot? Anything that we should, know about?
Yeah, yeah. So it's for me, it was a little interesting because I use the double battery SMD WBs for the digital hybrids. So I'm used to having that extended battery range with those double battery units. The units that I got my hands on to beta test, the digital units that I got my hands on to beta test with the DSR4 were single battery units. So I can't speak other than if you're used to if you were operating with an SMWB, a single battery digital hybrid, you're looking at similar run times on that. Maybe even a little longer because of the fact that you're not transmitting at a higher power and things like that. Um, I wasn't able to do extended run tests with them. I was more testing with those digital units on quicker tests like walk tests, range tests, finding using my spectrum scanner to find like a tougher RF environment around town here, and just trying to kind of operate within there in that spectrum, and see how things perform from more of a RF performance standpoint. But as far as battery goes, for the single battery digital units, I would say you're probably looking at close to what you're used to with the single battery hybrid
Okay,
units.
that's
Yeah.
that's terrific. So you're keeping the units, I assume.
Yes, I did purchase these as of Monday.
Yeah,
I decided to
fair.
buy them. Yep, yep, yep.
And I think that obviously says a lot. You didn't have to do that.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely, absolutely.
I want to do two things because we can make this pretty quick.
Yeah.
In a minute, tell us why you're keeping these units, and then after that, give us a tour of your bag.
So yeah, I decided to go ahead after the beta testing was done and these units have now gone to release. I had the option to buy out these units, purchase these units, and I decided to go ahead and buy them. Mainly because of what I experienced during beta testing. I did get a flurry of work during the beta testing period here. During winter, of course, in Minnesota, it's slowed down a little bit, but we got some, especially some sports work, which is always a good testing environment for RF equipment. I worked a couple of NFL games. I worked an NHL thing. I was at an NFL training camp facility. So there were a lot of RF operators in those environments. It's a tougher environment when there's an RF coordinator running around and asking you what you're operating on and making sure you're staying to your assigned frequencies. And in doing that, as an example, I was on the field for a Vikings game right up to kickoff, pretty much, for a show called 24 Hours to Kickoff for NFL Network. And being on the field right up to kickoff like that, that's like maximum RF environment going on. Like a lot of times they shut down RF systems when they're not needed, so they're not interfering if they're not needed, pumping that energy out into the world. But right up until kickoff, there we were running around and filming, and I had a couple of players mic'd up, and they were on the opposite end of the field. I was down on one end zone, and they were running up and down the field and 75, 80, 90 yards down on the other end, and with congested people all over the place, cameras, everything. I was getting solid signal all the way to the end of the field, and that was on a 50 milliwatt setting. with my double battery SMD-WBs. Yeah.
So, I mean, it sounds like you really used this stuff, and it really performed past your expectations.
Yeah, yeah, and I'm I'm harsh on things just like anyone else. We use this stuff to make money for our living. So I'm going to test it in the toughest RF environments I can. I did carry an SRC as a backup receiver in those situations in case something arose, but I got to a point where like I started just bringing it to jobs and not worrying about having a backup because it was flat out just working, in virtually any environment. I was in one other one. I was doing the U.S. Pond Hockey Championships outside, and I was outside on a lake, frozen lake in Minnesota. And again, I was about 75, 85 yards away inside of a brick building, steel door. My talent, we didn't know, but the talent had moved off the ice into this building. And it weirded me out because I was like, it sounded like the talent should be closer. It sounded like, there's no way the talent has moved far enough away to the point where I can't see them anymore. It would have dropped out on any other system that I'd worked on in the past. But here's this person inside this brick building with steel doors, and I'm getting it clear as day from 75, 85 yards away outside. That was another environment where I was, and that wasn't that wasn't a tough RF environment, but still, that was 75, 85 yards away with talent inside of a brick building with steel doors, and I was still getting clean signal from that transmitter.
This is all good to hear.
Yeah.
Let's see your bag.
Yeah, yeah.
I see a really compact rig. I see a rig that is 8 channels of receive. Is that correct?
Yes. Slotted in here, I've got your 2 DSR4s into the Sound Devices SL2, which of course is connected to the Sound Devices 888 recorder. And pretty much that's it, other than a couple of, I'll flip this around here, a couple of omnidirectional antennas there, mounted in a very interesting way. I've kind of connected them using double-sided, what is that, 3M dual lock kind of stuff, so that they're just kind of sitting on the bag like that. On my side over here, I've got my IFB transmitter upside down, so the antenna's pointing down just to kind of keep it out of the way. And then, other than that, I just got a Sony URX as a camera hop feed, and then for my timecode system, I use the good old Betso TCX2's wireless timecode system. I got their Slate as well. Other than that, I just use the Inspired Energy 98 watt hour smart batteries. And that's pretty much it, man. It's like you said, it's a compact rig. It's a lighter rig. Gives me all the functionality, all the control I need. I'm just going to turn off these channels here. Right in there.
And you had said something about the menu system, like you were worried that it was going to be really intimidating, but
or different. Yeah. See if it'll focus here. It might not.
I think when you backed off a little, it's hard to tell on my end, but I get it. I can see what's happening with the 4 channels. I mean, it really is pretty nice.
Yeah, it's pretty sweet. And you're on an SRC or an SRB, and I know it's kind of hard to see here, but you've got your your menu select button here that drops you into the menu system. Of course, they upgraded to a full bore color LCD screen here with a much higher resolution than the good old SRCs or SRBs. But easily move through the menu system there. All your menu items are virtually identical to previous Lectrosonics systems, or I would say if you're the D squared stuff, you know, or the venue systems. The menu systems on their digital stuff is very much like this as well. So you got a higher resolution. So you have, you know, just like any Electro unit here, it starts with, you got your RF setup, audio setup, compatibility modes, your IR sync, you know, and then just general settings and about. It's, you know, pretty straightforward menu system. Once you drop into each of those menus, it gets a little more complex. But yeah, you got your Smart Tune, which, by the way, works really freaking good. It's fast, much faster than the SRC or the SRB. Um, the frequencies that is chosen for me thus far have always worked. So it's been great. It's the same functionality too. You scan, it chooses your frequency. You say yes or no. Do you want to keep that? And then basically IR sync. Same kind of thing there. You can do a good old scan there. You can clear scan data, which is kind of cool. If you want to have a scan graph in there, and you want to look at this scan graph but not have to rescan again, it basically, what it does is it saves the scan graph in there for you now. And if you want to scan again, if you just hit scan again, it'll clear it and scan a new one, or you can manually clear the scan data, which I thought was a kind of cool function there.
So you can see what changed, maybe.
See what changed, yeah. A/B compare. As well. I do have this option for vector pairs now too, which has been very fun.
What's a vector pair?
They basically took and made a 4-channel SRC or SRB that performs better than an SRC or SRB and can work individually 4 channels with digital or analog. They offered the option to use vector diversity with the DSR4 as well, which means that it can improve receive in certain tougher RF environments. And the way Electro kind of describes it is it actually can help with specifically the digital transmitters in tougher RF environments.
Absolutely. It sounds like it's 2 different data streams coming in that it can then piece together one good data stream.
Yeah. And exactly. And that's kind of how I understand it. Other than the way it typically works is you've got your 2 antenna channels, if you speak, your diversity antenna signals, and the regular diversity is kind of switching diversity is just kind of switching back and forth between the 2, selecting the best one, whereas vector diversity is actually analyzing both feeds constantly and using both feeds as an additive thing instead of just choosing one or the other, actually using both of them to improve the signal, which is, I've tried it both ways, and to be quite honest with you, I haven't really thought, oh man, I better switch over to vector because I'm having some trouble here. I've used vector. I've done some tests, as an example, where on receiver A, I'll do, or slot A here, I'll do 2 channels of vector, and then I'll take those same 2 transmitters, I'll bring them into here, and then do 2 channels of regular switched diversity and A/B compare. And I've done that on actual jobs in tougher RF environments, and they've both performed equally as well. I haven't really noticed a huge difference, but there are situations where I can imagine vector diversity will help you out. I haven't run into those yet, even in tougher RF environments.
Well, this all sounds amazing. And just a question: you're feeding your sound devices recorder with an SL2, and now with the new firmware, have you loaded it up, and are you able to feed all channels into the unit with the SR2?
Yeah. So basically, during beta testing, I was using, of course, a beta sound devices firmware, specifically for beta testing, that allowed 8 channels of AES digital audio to feed from the DSR4s digitally into the 888 or your 8 series. now, as you see, Sound Devices released version 9.20 that has that functionality in it as well. It's basically the same functionality that I've been beta testing. You still, you know, and I can show you here, it still is not in when we go into SuperSlot. Those receivers are still not showing up there. They're working on that. Sound Devices is working on implementing full control functionality from the menu here, the SuperSlot menu, full control functionality of those receivers. But again, one thing I'd like to mention is that with the way those menus are on here, I have actually grown to like operating these receivers from the actual menus on the receivers themselves. They're just a nice menu, nice looking layout, things like that. But there, of course, is some functionality I'm looking forward to. You know, scanning from the 8 series here via the SL2 and having my scan graph in here and picking and choosing. You know, when we go down to SuperSlot here, of course, there's hotkeys for this, but I'm one-handed. Let's see. You know, getting in here and actually choosing which receiver you want to address, going in there, changing all the settings of that receiver channel from frequency to diversity style to battery type to all of that business. That's going to be nice to have that functionality in here as well. Yeah.
Amazing. It really is groundbreaking to have so many RF channels in such a tight space and all that weight savings. And thank you very much for that deep dive.
And absolutely.
It is great to see somebody happy with their kit.
It's been a lot of fun beta testing and using these units. If anyone's looking for a quad channel unit like this, you know, there's some options out there with the Lectro units. I personally have had really good luck with them, and I've purchased them, and I look forward to using them going forward. There might even be a third unit for me in downrange here.
Amazing.
Yeah.
Well, that's Jeff. Thank you so much for spending the time and sharing that with us.
Absolutely. Thanks for having me, Peter.
Yeah, you bet. Thanks for watching, everybody. There's more videos at GothamSound.tv. We love your ideas. Please keep them coming. Thank you very much, Jeff.
Thank you. Have a good one.
You too. Thanks.